All right, just in case, before they might come back in this series, let's talk about picking apart the Maple Leafs. Should they blow it up? Coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is presented by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on today's show. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We got a fun one for you today. We love transactional shows about potential trades, even if the idea might be a little wild. So let's get into it today on the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs are down 3-2 in their series, and they play tonight. So it is possible that you'd be listening to this show after the game has ended, and maybe they have forced a Game 7. Maybe their season has ended. I want to get this show in now, though, on the chance they come back. And if they were to come back, that would change this conversation probably a lot. But where we are at, there is drama about the Maple Leafs. There is an impending defeat. They are a big underdog still in this series. And if they lose more than ever, I know we do the same thing every year, but there are differences, big differences between this year and past years when we talk about blowing the Leafs up. From the most realistic trade ideas with Toronto all the way to the most outlandish trade conversations with Toronto. We'll get to it all. Marner, Nylander, Matthews, maybe? All ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you are not a texter and you want to jump in on our Locked On Sabres text line, feel free to do that. If you are not texting already, you can sign up. Go head over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. Once you're there, once you've signed up, everything is on your phone like a regular old group chat. And we had a lot of back and forth in the last couple of days on Lindy Ruff, long, lengthy statement to the Buffalo Sabres faithful about getting this team back on track. Lindy wrote a long kind of essay, I want to say, about it. And it is definitely, more and more, it's becoming clear to me that he took this job because he just wants to get the Sabres back to it. I'll read it quickly here in case you have not read it, word for word. Lindy Ruff. Dear Sabres fans, I can't begin to express how excited I am to be back in Buffalo, the city that has embraced me since my NHL journey began here as a player in 1979. Your unwavering support for this team is something that I have always admired, even in my years away from the organization. It is something that has always motivated me, and I have seen firsthand the positive impact it has had on our teams here over the years. Want you to know I feel a profound sense of responsibility upon my shoulders. It is a responsibility not only to all of you who have stood by this team through thick and thin, but also to the organization and its storied history. Most importantly, it is a responsibility I do not take lightly. I can't help but see striking similarities between this group and the ones with whom I have seen rise to the occasion in the past. There is a blend of talent, character, and potential that excites me and fills me with optimism for the journey ahead. We have shared some special years together, each of which have marked by a combination of talent, determination, and a relentless drive to win here. Today, I see echoes of the youthful exuberance and hunger for success that characterize those seasons. I have experienced deafening roars you created inside of the arena in our biggest moments. I often think of thousands of people without tickets to games, standing shoulder to shoulder in the plaza, erupting after every single goal. I can still see 19,070 white pom-poms waving with excitement as vividly as when I experienced it for the first time. You are what truly sets this organization apart from the rest. As we embark on this journey together, I need you to know that I am focused on doing everything I can to earn your trust. With that being said, I'm going to push this group as hard as any I have coached in the past because I believe in this team, I believe in this city, and I believe in you. The work starts now. Lindy Ruff. That was lengthy. Took a couple of minutes there. I thought that was worth, though, taking a couple of minutes on this show just to make sure everyone heard that. Because Lindy is getting people fired up. He is saying everything he needs to say. that one line at the end. I'm going to push this group as hard as any I've coached in the past because I believe in this team. I believe in the city. I believe in you. I mean, that's the sales pitch. That's the sales pitch for the season right there from Lindy Ruff. Also, what we've been talking about in our text line, Matthew Savoy is on a lengthy point streak. He's playing in the WHL playoffs, and he has a point in every single game he's played in the WHL playoffs. He's the only one in that league that can say that. Here's a crazy stat for you on how dominant Matthew Savoy has been in juniors this year. Matthew Savoy has a point in every game he has played in the WHL since February 2nd. That was 3 months ago. He has not played a game in over 3 months where he didn't register a point. The guy is way above the competition. 47 points in 23 regular season games, 18 points in 12 playoff games. Savoy, I think, is ready for the AHL playoffs, but he's got a little bit of a ways to go still. So that also is something we were talking about. The Amherst, by the way, do play tonight. Amherst play tonight against Syracuse, Game 3 in Cuse. We'll see what we get. I'll fill you in on what happened on tomorrow's show. Hopefully we get an Amherst win and a potential closeout for Game 4 in Syracuse. So all that's ahead. Let's get to the Toronto Maple Leafs, though. They are down 3-2 to the Boston Bruins, and the hockey world is talking about all the drama, all the stuff that is happening with the Leafs. And that does go beyond what is happening on the ice. What's happening on the ice isn't that bad by Leaf standards, right? They're still in it. They have a Game 6 at home that can force a Game 7 back in Boston. Now, to be fair, when in the world would you ever expect the Toronto Maple Leafs to go to Boston and win a Game 7? So first, they got to win at Game 6 at home. The funniest result, of course, for the Leafs, which usually is the one that happens, is if they lose at home and they end it on home ice, Game 6 against the Bruins. That's what I'm rooting for. That's what I think could very well happen. You've got more than that, though. You've got this scene from game number 4, where, actually, let me go back even before that. From the start of the series, it's just been strange. No Willie Nylander for games 1 and 2, but he was practicing, and they had no explanation. They didn't want to tell us if it what injury-wise, or whether he was sick. It was all shrouded in darkness of what is happening with Willie Nylander. He's on the ice for practice, and then everyone thinks he's going to play that night, and then, oh, no, he's not playing that night either. Is it disciplinary? Is it, again, injury? We didn't know. So then Nylander does get on the ice, and there they are in Game 4, and they're down 3-0 in the second period, and the camera pans to the core group. They're all sitting next to each other. Matthews on the left, then Tyler Bertuzzi, and then Mitch Marner and Willie Nylander, all in a line. And Bertuzzi's not even included in the conversation. He's looking off to the side. And what you have from those three guys, the core group of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the young core that have been a part of this group since day 1 that they got competitive. Matthews yelling at one of his teammates, looked like it was Marner, just shoot the bleeping puck. And he looks frustrated, and he's giving it to Marner. And then you've got Nylander. I don't know who he's talking to, because when the camera's on Nylander, we only see Nylander. But he's looking that way, so I might guess he's talking to Marner. And what does he say? Quit crying. This is in juniors. And then you have the camera back to Marner, who rips off his gloves and slams them on the floor. Then they go to the locker room, and it's 3-0 in the second intermission. And Auston Matthews, who, yes, had a little case of the flu or illness, whatever it was, before that game started, but had been cleared and played the first 2 periods, doesn't come out for the third period. Nowhere to be seen. They play the game, they score a goal, they lose 3-1. Okay? Then Matthews doesn't play the next game, and he doesn't practice. And then this morning, the morning of Game 6, Matthews shows up on the ice. He's working individually. The rest of the team comes out for the formal skate. He's not out there. So, illness, right? Maybe it's being passed around. I don't know. Some sort of sickness, I guess, is the explanation for why their best players are not playing in this series, especially now with Matthews. But the timing, I want to get off at the front here, though. I hope Matthews is okay, whatever it is, because most hockey players, man, what you need to do to them to have them skip playoff games, the guys play through. TJ Oshie the other day for the Capitals said he'd been playing through a broken hand in the first round that he got on a Matt Rempe hit. Kept playing. Guys play through everything in the playoffs, but these guys aren't. Why? Is there more to it? Are they hiding behind the illness? Matthews is yelling at a teammate. They're all getting into it. They go to the locker room. He doesn't come out. And they say sickness. I hope he's okay if it is that. But it's just the timing of it all has to make you speculate. Is there more to it? If Matthews went into that locker room and tore it up, went after the coach, went after teammates, whatever, said, I'm done, anything that you want to speculate about, this is what it would look like. It would look like this. They wouldn't say he's away from the team. They wouldn't say he left the team, he quit. That's you can't do that in hockey. You're poisonous forever if you do that. But this is how it would look. So I'm left to wonder. I'm certainly left to wonder. And because of all this infighting, and because it's an 8th year in a row where they fall short of expectations, 7 of the 8 years they lose in the first round. They would be 1-8 in playoff series as a core if they lose this game either tonight or in Game 7. You have to talk about the trading now of a big player more than ever before. Marner, Nylander, Matthews. Let's talk about him with the Sabres in mind and how likely each of them are for the league in general and here. Are they worth talking about this summer? That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented here on the show by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championship, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast also brought to you by Gametime. Gametime, an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices in the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. And we're not too far away. We're only a couple hours away from playoff games happening right down the road in Cleveland with the Cavaliers and the Magic. And there could be some bigger series on the way as the Cavs are looking pretty good in that one. So check it out. Look at the Gametime app. You got baseball just a short drive north as well. You've got a lot of comedy, theater events near us as well right here in Buffalo. Check out the Gametime app. Flash deals, zone deals, flash deals. Save even more with an exclusive in-app deal on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals, you save even more when you choose a section and you let Gametime guarantee the seats. Tickets are available right up to the start of the event, even sometimes an hour after the event. If you're hanging out, tailgating in for a Bills game, and you want to wait until the game is either getting close or starting to get the lowest price ticket, Gametime is the place to do that. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, we are rolling through the playoffs in the NHL, the Amherst as well, and check out all the coverage, not just for hockey, but for basketball, the NFL draft recap stuff from this week, all on Locked On Sports today. It's available 24/7 stream on YouTube or on the Amazon Fire TV app and the Channels app. All right. What is realistic? What is unrealistic for the Maple Leafs? I think you could argue to some degree anything is on the table, but to very differing degrees. All the way at the bottom is Matthews. At the top, I might be willing to say Mitch Marner is the guy to talk about. And that this summer, there's a good chance, a decent chance at least, that he's going to get dealt. He is someone that has been blamed for their playoff failures. He is somebody that falls short of expectations. He is a well above point a game player in the NHL for his career. He's got 639 points in 576 games, well above a point a game. And that includes his first 2 years in the league when he was 19 and 20. Since then, he's even more above a point a game player. Well, what happens though when he gets to the playoffs? For his playoff career, 55 games played, 11 goals, 50 assists. 50 points. So 50 points in 55 games. He goes from way above a point a game in the regular season to below a point a game in the playoffs. He drops off. He's not a physical player. He's not always a decisive player. He's not a goal scorer. So, I mean, he went multiple years without scoring a playoff goal, and they have been in the playoffs every single year. So Marner is the one that I think is most likely to get dealt. Contract is a big piece of this as well. Marner is in the final year of his deal, going into the final year of his deal. Next season is it. 1 year, $10.9 million. And then he's an unrestricted free agent at age 27. If he made it to free agency, would get paid unlike anybody we've seen. More than Tavares, I think, who is at currently going into his final year at $11 million. Marner's the guy. Marner's the guy to target. Marner's the guy that most likely is going to fall on the sword. And he's a great player. He's unbelievable. The hands, the speed, the passing ability. He does score goals in the regular season more than he does in the playoffs. This year, 26. Year before, 30. Year before that, 35. He's more of an assist guy, sure. But from the wing, he's been incredible. One of the best wingers in hockey. I actually tend to think there is an ability for him to play center. It's just been so long since we've seen it that would be a little bit of an unknown. But I would like to see on his next team him tried out at center. That's what he did in juniors. It's what he did a good amount of early in his career. But ever since they signed John Tavares and you went, and by the way, Nylander plays a little center too, but more so you got Matthews and Tavares 1-2 center. For Marner to play in the top six, he's had to play primarily on the wing. I wonder if he can go back to center at any point. And if he can't, whatever. You got one of the best wingers in hockey. I think all these reasons are why he's going to get dealt. Now, everyone's in on it. Giant bidding war. Sabres have the assets to outbid anybody if they really had the motivation to do it. The complicating factors here, like for most star players, a no movement clause. I'm going to use the same sales pitch that it can get tired, but sometimes it's true that sometimes this works. One sales pitch that you can always have to a Toronto native is we're not that far down the road, and you don't have the chaotic machine that is Toronto here. Sure, there's pressure, but it's local pressure. There's not this national pressure that you get from the Maple Leafs in Buffalo, but you get to stay close to home at the same time, and you have a team that generally, for star players, is willing to overpay. So Marner, that's your sales pitch to get him to waive the no movement clause. And he doesn't have to move his stuff very far. He's already in Toronto. He's from Toronto. How far does he want to go? Does he want to go to San Jose? Maybe he does. I don't know the guy. But if he wants to stay somewhat close to home, that's how the Sabres would get in the ballgame. Now, what would you pay? How do you outbid everybody else? The guys over at After the Whistle, Andrew Peters, Craig Rivet, they tweeted out the other day, what about Owen Power for Mitch Marner? And I don't hate that. I don't hate that. Now, any trade like this, I just want to say up front, would have to come with some agreement with Marner that you're going to sign here long term, right? We're not trading Owen Power unless we know you're signing. So if you get that assurance, Power becomes interesting because now that you have Byram, Dahlin's in the fold, Samuelson is signed. I don't love it. I'd rather not, but I wouldn't say no. I'll just say that because Power has not taken the step to be an elite player. Marner is an elite player. So I'd be trading in the hope, the uncertainty, and the potential for surefire, immediately the best forward on my team. I think the Sabres are in a position in their timeline where that type of trade is warranted. More ideal would be if I just give them a ton of stuff, right? You can have Matt Savoy, who's been insanely good in juniors. You can have Kulik too. Take them both. And then take our first round pick and take a second round pick. And you want an NHL player? We'll throw in, how about as a sweetener? You could just have Peyton Krebs as a throw in. Because, hey, maybe he turns into something. Or you want a different player that's a little bit lesser of value or that's not, Tage Thompson. Find him a guy like that. I wouldn't throw Benson in there if I'm already putting Savoy and Kulik. But I'm willing to pay a lot of stuff if they would be willing to do it. I wouldn't give up Quinn or Peterka unless it's Peterka and it's Roseanne in a first. You want to do that? I'd do that. That's a lot. I know. Peterka's a good player. All these guys, though, that you might love right now in the Sabres, nobody has had 4 90-point seasons like Marner has. And I'm giving him 4 when I really should give him 6. Because if the COVID shortened years didn't happen and he didn't get injured this year, he'd have 6 straight 90-point seasons, 85 and 69 games this year. He's an elite player. And I would give up a lot to get him, as you can clearly tell. And I think he's got a very good chance of getting traded. What about the other two? Willie Nylander and, dare I say it, Auston Matthews? We'll get into those less serious ideas, I would say, when we come back, and I'll tell you why they're less serious. On the Locked On Sabres podcast, we're presented here on the show by Monopoly Go. All right, game on. We got to pause here, talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You already talked about that, but I know there's so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers. You can trade with friends, complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine, and there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench, go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We're getting nuts today with the Maple Leafs trade machine as they could see their season end tonight against the Bruins. It would be 7 of 8 years losing in the first round. The core of Marner, Matthews, and Nylander would go 1-8 in playoff series should they lose tonight or in Game 7. What about the other two? We talked about Marner. What about Willie Nylander? And what about Auston Matthews? Well, let's start with Nylander. And the big reason why these two are less serious trade ideas. Contract. Contract is the biggest reason. Let's start with Nylander. Nylander hasn't even started his new extension yet. Nylander next season starts a long-term deal. $11.5 million per year. And it runs through, wait for it, 2032. It's a year I can't even fathom yet. 2032. His contract runs through at $11.5 million a year. Willie Nylander is a damn good hockey player. But that investment, I'd rather have Marner. And that's knowing Nylander has had some big seasons too. This year, bigger season than Marner's ever had. 98 points. But he never had 90 before that. And as I mentioned, Marner should be going on 6 in a row if he had not had the COVID shortened years. So I think Marner's a better player. That's point number one. The contract's just a lot. Now, maybe he's more gettable because you'd be eating a contract that's already done versus Marner, you get to control it on your own front. The way, even if it's not just the cap hits, how you structure it, whether you want to pay it up front or whether you want more bonus laden stuff, you could kind of control a lot of that stuff, and there's value in that for NHL teams. So that's point number one. Point number two, Nylander has kind of held his own in the playoffs recently. 3 straight playoff series before this one, he was right at a point per game. He's shown up. He's scored. Those years where Marner wasn't scoring in the playoffs, look at Nylander. 5 goals in 7 games 3 years ago. 3 goals in 7 games 2 years ago, 4 goals in 11 games last year, but he did add 6 assists for 10 points. So a little bit better. So not too different than Marner, but because he's already signed, I just feel like that's the biggest key as to why it's less likely than Marner. Now, he's way more likely than Matthews, but let's get stupid here with Auston Matthews, because he's the one right now that's missing. He's the one right now that's not there. And it has to make you wonder his mental side of this. What's he thinking in all this? Now, he's already signed, but he didn't sign the 7-8-year deal. Nylander's locked up till 2032. Matthews expires 4 years before that. He only signed a 4-year deal that also kicks in next year at $13.25 million, which, by the way, the production per dollar that you're getting, I'd much rather get Matthews' production at 13.25 than Nylander's at 11.5. Matthews is one of the best players in the sport. One of the best 3 centers probably in the sport, only behind McDavid and McKinnon. He's amazing. He's the best goal scorer going right now. He's incredible. I just don't see it. This one's from the Leafs perspective. They're not doing that. Matthews could even ask to be traded, and I don't think the Leafs would do it. You can't trade that guy. You cannot do it. You have to keep him forever. He is your best player in franchise history. You even better than Sundin. Maybe that's crazy, but I think he's better than that. So if you're Toronto, you just simply can't do it. If he were to go on the market, I mean, sky's the limit. What do you want? You want Dahlin? Really? I'm not kidding. You want Power and Benson? You want Power, Peterka, Kulik in a first? Go ahead. I mean, I don't know if there's a limit to what I might give up. I get as stupid as possible. I'm getting the 3rd best center in hockey. And from a Sabres perspective, again, as we explore this crazy hypothetical, how else are you getting that guy? Marner's a winger. I might think he could play center, but he hasn't. And Nylander has played some center, but he's not. He's a winger. Matthews is a number 1 center. And there's only 2 guys in the sport that are better than him. You're not getting that. There's no other way you're getting that. Unless you win the lottery one of these years at 3%. You're not getting Auston Matthews or a player like that. This would be your one opportunity. What's funny is Matthews loves Don Granato, and he's not here anymore. So that as a sales pitch, that's out the window. Would that have made the real difference between where he would go anyway? Probably not. But it was a thought I had as all this nonsense was unraveling with Auston Matthews. So again, I don't think in any world he's getting traded. Completely unrealistic. If he made the market, offer them whatever they want. Blank check. Marner is the one to put the bow on this, though, that I really do think could get traded this offseason, and I would love for the Sabres to be in that ballgame. For all this to happen, the Leafs got to lose. Don't root for Boston. You can root against the Leafs without rooting for Boston. Pretend that it's not even the Bruins uniform. Just laugh at the Leafs. Hope they lose in Game 6, and maybe we get some chaos this summer. They'll probably fire their coach, too, in Sheldon Keefe. All right, it's going to do it for us today here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. We did not talk Dylan Cousins, so we planned on today's show. I wanted to get that Leaf stuff in. We'll talk Cousins. We'll talk about the Amerks playoff game 3 against Syracuse, and also some interesting reporting on Rod Brind'Amour. Do we have buyer's remorse on Lindy now that it seems more likely that Brind'Amour is going to become available? All that on our next show. Thanks for tuning in today on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Be sure to check us out. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports today. It's available 24/7 stream on YouTube, as well as the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We'll talk to you next time here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.